And good day, everybody. My name is Greg Horn, and I'm the editor and publisher of Yuriwaze. And I'm joined by Jordan Standup and Mark Lalone. We're here with our very first podcast. We're going to be doing these things over the next few weeks and months. And the first one we're doing is going to be a monthly review, and we're going to look back at the month of January 2021 and all the things that have happened in our community and also things that concern our community. So we'll just dive right into it. I mean, there's been a lot of topics and a lot of news that's happened throughout the past month. Most of it has been about revolving around the COVID-19 pandemic, but there's also other things that do happen. And so I guess that's really the jumping off point. Let's start talking about some of the stories that we've all covered.
Well, I mean, January was probably, or this January in particular, probably was the longest month in history. I would imagine with the lockdown, as Greg was just talking about, with the modified lockdown, if you will, talking about everything being related to COVID. But believe it or not, there are some other things that are happening out there. One of which is the Winter Carnival, which is supposed to be starting as of February the 1st. It was really tricky for the youth center to make it happen this year because of all the restrictions and everything else that's going on. So a lot of the events that we are going to be seeing as part of the Winter Carnival this year are going to be very, very different. And what I mean when I say that is there's going to be a lot of virtual events, and everything is going to be social distance, and people are going to be staying within their family bubbles as much as possible. I know that talking to the youth center over the last month, or even before that, because planning goes back to last maybe October or even November. And at that time, they knew what they were dealing with, so they were already starting to look at these activities having to be socially distanced, virtual at best. We've seen that already with the Spirit of Wellness Month, them having to take that route. And now the youth center is going to have to do that. But I think the community is ready for it. I mean, I think you guys agree everybody's been ready to get out there, and a lot of the activities that they're going to be presenting this year look like it's going to be a lot of fun. Snow sculptures rather, and a lot of the organizations are on board this year too. Once again, of course, we have KSDPP, KSCS, and I think it's going to be good timing. Everybody in the community is going to really need this time to get out and see people as safely as possible, or be as safe as possible.
Yeah, and I think the community has really been preparing for things like this and used to doing things like this. I mean, it's a jumping off point from some of the things that were already happening and started this month. The Rediscover Winter campaign that the Sports and Rec Unit is doing. So a lot of those activities like snowshoeing and cross-country skiing and sliding and all those things are all part of that, right? And so it's a natural extension to be able to just, okay, well, we're already doing some of these things, so we can go out and do this, for another month. And, there was a snow sculpture contest that some community members put together, a couple weeks ago. And that really, that came together because there was a snowstorm, and the snow that fell was that perfect snowball snow that made it easier to do some of those things, right? And now, the community has been like doing stuff like that. So it gets a little bit easier, more normal, and being able to participate in something with the whole community, but also do it in a safe manner within your own family bubbles, right? So, and that's really, we look back at the last 10 months and the different health and safety measures that have been in place, and it gets long, but, we also have to keep our eye on the prize, right? And our eye on the ultimate goal. And that's to prevent the hospitalization, loss of life due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And and I guess that's a nice way to segue into right before Christmas, the task force announced that there would be, as a preemptive measure, closing down the non-essential retail businesses in the community and manufacturing facilities, that was, I think, a decision that probably was not easy to make. It was one that was probably met with some upset people. But ultimately, if you look at the numbers where the community was going at the end of December, beginning of January, And you look at the numbers in the communities around us. I think on January 1st, Quebec's seen over 3,200 positive cases on just one day. And the community went for months without any positive cases. And then, as we went through October, November, and December, the numbers slowly started to rise. And throughout the month of January, we were looking at, I think, as many as 23 active cases of COVID-19 in the community. And, as Task Force member Arnold Lazar said the other day, that it is serious, but at the same time, you got to look at that it's not the important numbers, hospitalizations, people in ICU, and deaths has remained zero. And they attribute it directly to the community buying into the measures and directives that have been put in place, and with the preemptive measure of closing down things. So those are some of the things that I think that we're seeing and dealing with as a community. And Mark, would you like to add?
I absolutely would like to add to that, because I actually had a chance to sit down with Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller the other day, and he spoke directly to this. He spoke about how the tightness of a lot of Indigenous communities has allowed them to band together and fight off the pandemic. And a lot of the communities have been telling him, hey, look, we know how to take care of our people. We know what we have to do to keep this thing out. You just have to give us the financial wherewithal to do so. And so federal government up and committed another $1 billion+ this week to be sort of committed over the next couple of years to build health infrastructures in a lot of remote northern communities where maybe they don't have any, to offer up medical isolation tents, rapid testing in other regions. But just the tightness and close-knit nature of First Nations communities has, on one hand, propagated, certain outbreaks in certain areas, but on the other hand, it has allowed certain in certain regions the outbreaks to be far lower than in areas around them, much like Kahnawake is.
Yeah, and I think that's going back to March of last year, in April, and some of the things that the task force was talking about, and task force head Lloyd Phillips, the director of public safety commissioner rather, he's said that the community strengths, the greatest strengths of the community about how close we are and how together we are, is also in this case one of our weaknesses, because if there's an outbreak, it could spread really quickly, and because of how tight knit we are, and if you just look at some of the things over the last month, and how they were expecting that the numbers were going to increase in January because of the holiday season, and easing some of the directives, as Christmas was approaching, and allowing some family visits and things like that, we've seen the surge in some of the numbers, and it's unfortunate that people are getting sick, but at the same time, it's also important to note that even though people are getting sick, the entire community is banding together to work towards making sure that our most vulnerable population isn't getting sick, right?
So that's of course the one side that we were always talking about with when it comes to COVID. And of course, in our community, we're lucky to have a lot of resources, or at least a lot of people are talking about the mental health aspect of being in quarantine or being by yourself, being away from your family. And it's good that KSCS is regularly out there in the community as much as they can be at this time, promoting the different resources that they have, especially with children now. We're seeing a lot of that with the youth. They're starting to come up with some more programming for the youth. They're offering more resources because it's hard for anybody right now. I mean, it's hard for us as adults, and with kids at home, and you're always wondering how to keep them occupied and everything like that, and you have to wonder about their mental health if you're thinking about your own mental health all the time. But I'm glad that it's a big discussion in the community. It seems like everybody, the general well-being of everybody seems to be pretty on the up and up with that. And I'd like to see that continue because I've been covering a lot of that this month, and I think it's going to continue into the spring.
Yeah, and mental health is one of those things that I think that it's not always easy to talk about. Everybody talks about physical health, but mental health is also just as important, if not more important. The things that we're seeing, and how we're living today is vastly different than it was just a year ago. We're not able to see our family and friends in the way that we're used to. We're not able to get the same types of entertainment or same types of outlets to relieve stress. Gym restrictions, sports being closed down. And that's for us as adults, and then for children who are used to normally going to school every day and seeing their friends and hanging out, and then going to places like the youth center afterwards, or or any of the other after school programs, and then at the same time youths playing team sports and all that, and to have those things taken away so dramatically, it really does play into it, and that's a big change for for the youths, but also for their parents and everybody else. So it's a huge thing, and like just living what we remember as a normal life, for the time being, that's not what we're going to be seeing. But again, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Some community members, working at the hospital, and some frontline workers, starting right before Christmas, started to get the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, which, as the task force has said, is the key to moving forward, and to moving past this pandemic. And I know Mark has spoken with Indigenous Service Minister Mark Miller about the vaccine rollout to Indigenous communities across Canada.
The vaccine it's been an interesting situation to this point, because as I understand it, most of the provinces have set up a trilateral advisory board. So you have Health Canada, you have the provincial health authorities, and in many cases you also have an Indigenous aspect to the advisory board. How will vaccines be sort of distributed? Which nations will get which vaccines? Which storage requirements sort of work best for those communities? So there's been a great deal of sort of engagement between the federal government and Indigenous communities, but you still feel like there is a little bit of frost in the relationship, and that based on little things like the government not living up to their drinking water promise for 2021, that would sort of indicate there's a level of mistrust still of the federal government on the part of a lot of First Nations communities. I think Mark Miller is going about his work in good faith. I think individually, the federal government and the people there are, invested and engaged in First Nations health. I just would be eager to see that the follow-up actions get taken, to maintain a level of health in these communities. I just don't want it to be lip service.
Yeah, and the federal government listed the priorities on who was getting the vaccine in the preliminary stages, and that it was people over 80 living in long-term care facilities, and then frontline workers and hospital workers who are working directly with those people. And then the fourth priority list on the list of priorities is Indigenous people from Indigenous communities across Canada, mainly because many Indigenous people and many Indigenous communities have populations that are high risk, and high risk to suffering the worst consequences of COVID-19, and it's important to get those types of things out there, right? And so the federal government was on board right away and said okay. And then in Quebec, because the federal government is the one who is purchasing the vaccines, and then it gets distributed to the provinces through the provincial health systems, and it was about now getting the province on board with being able to say, okay, yes, this is the priority list, and here we go. And ideally, what the task force would like to see is the mass vaccination program in the community. They would like to see it beginning in the month of February, and that was all the indications. But there's also been some delays in the delivery of the vaccine. There was zero deliveries of the Pfizer vaccine to the province of Quebec this past week, as Pfizer is retooling their production facility in Belgium to make it more to be able to make more doses, because they're I think in the current state they're able to produce 1.2 billion doses. With retooling, they'll be able to do 2 billion doses in a year. So it's an important project that they're working on, but it also delays the rollout and our delivery. The task force, though, has been able to get confirmation from the province that everybody in the community who wants to be vaccinated and get the first dose of the vaccine will be able to get that by March 31st. So that's important, and again, because the key to getting out of this pandemic is herd immunity, and herd immunity is obtained in one of two ways: one, through a vaccine, or two, developing natural immunities from getting it. And if you get COVID-19, there's no guarantee that it's going to be a mild case for you. So it's important to be able to be as protected as possible, right?
Yeah, the statistics say if you're generally under 75, your odds of surviving are pretty good, but there are a ton of long-term health effects associated with virus we don't know about yet. I've heard of cases of people developing myocarditis. So for active people in their 20s and 30s, that myocarditis could really have a serious impact on your quality of life going forward. And that's just one small effect that we sort of know about already. It's what we don't know that is, I think, the most frightening at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, and again too, you were talking earlier about mistrust of the government, and I think people have a natural mistrust of the federal government, especially when it comes to vaccines, because you look at you just look at history, you look at the residential school system, and you look at different ways in which the government had used Native people as test subjects for different vaccines, and so that's still part of the thinking that's going on, and I think that's going to be an issue moving forward with the vaccine. And people are also very wary of the vaccine, because it seems like it was developed so quickly through the research that I've been doing and reporting on the whole pandemic, is that yes, it seems like very quick, but it's based on 17 years worth of research into SARS, and the virus that caused SARS is SARS-CoV-1. Mm-hmm. So, which is very similar to SARS-CoV-2, which is causing COVID-19. So they were able to use that research and apply it to the new variant of the virus, and to be able to look at how the virus attacks or gets into your system. And that's using the spike protein, which latches on to your ACE2 receptors in your eyes, nose, and mouth. So by the vaccine, it's an mRNA vaccine, and it gives the instructions to your immune system on how to create, or to your system on how to create the spike protein, not the virus itself, but about the spike protein. And then it teaches your immune system on how to fight that off. So you get antibodies that will, if the SARS-CoV-2 virus enters your system, your body knows how to fight it off, and you will not have adverse effects of the virus. So that's an important thing moving forward.
Yeah, so there's definitely some light. It's positive, like you said. Though I've seen a lot of things on social media from community members who are skeptical or weary of getting the vaccine, and there was a lot of people who initially, when we were first sent to start working from home last March, pretty much, a lot of people were, "Where's the vaccine? How come we don't have a vaccine? We need something in place." And now we have something in place, and it seems like people are starting to their reluctance is starting to show. But I mean, it's something that, like you said, we're doing. That Greg mentioned earlier, we're doing this as a community. We're taking care of, or we're trying to take care of our most vulnerable population here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all have to continue doing that. Supporting each other mental health wise, and just hearing each other out, being there for each other in whatever way we can right now. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one of the important things too is that what, as Indigenous communities, not just Kahnawake, but all Indigenous communities need to do, we have to protect our elders, and because our elders are knowledge keepers, and our first language Kahnawake speakers are almost exclusively our elders, and if we lose these people to this virus, there's a vast amount of knowledge that we're losing, and we're never going to get back. And so I think that's one really important aspect that that makes our communities different than communities outside of Kahnawake, right?
Absolutely. And I'd like to speak to that, actually. Mark Miller made a point when we spoke on Zoom last week about the government investing a ton of money into human resources as well for Indigenous caregivers to accompany elders in First Nations territories to get the vaccine, to help them feel more comfortable, to help them realize this isn't some government ploy to track them or microchip them or to marginalize them, but in fact to protect them. And as you say, we're talking about institutional memory, we're talking about institutional knowledge, we're talking about memories and life experience that you can't get back if we lose those people. And I feel like that investment into those Indigenous caregivers is one of the best investments the government could make, because, as you say, there is a tremendous level of mistrust of the government and of people approaching, Indigenous peoples with needles, saying this will be good for you, this will help you, we're looking after you. They have to believe it and they have to trust it.
Yeah, and that's going to be I think for a lot of people in a lot of communities that's going to be a huge leap of faith on whether or not they're going to be getting the vaccine. And I mean, if we go back to last March, and how quickly things evolved, and the last issue of Yuriwa's Day that we had before everybody started working from home, the front page was talking about the pandemic and COVID-19 being in the province. At that time, there was only, I believe, 6 active confirmed cases of the virus in Quebec, and they shut down schools, they stopped sports, and made sure everybody worked from home. And and then of course, then the first wave just exploded, and we get to where we are today. But those first few weeks and months were so difficult, and that was what a lot of people were saying, as Jordan said, was where's the vaccine? When we're getting a vaccine? We're living in a world where there's one vaccine that we don't have for one virus. So imagine if there was no vaccines for anything, right? So I think that's really important. I mean, and the reason why we need a vaccine for this, and isn't because for 99+% of people who get this, it's not going to be a big deal for the most part. You're looking at people who are getting who've had it and said that, it felt like allergies, or it felt like a mild cold, because it's the same family as the common cold. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that in Quebec alone, 92% of all deaths are people over 80. And we can't allow, a virus to cause, deaths like that. So I think it's important that we do what we can as a collective to protect everybody individually.
Right. And to speak to your point, I've seen a lockdown fatigue in the last few weeks from people. Largely, mental health is being impacted across the board. This January has maybe been the most miserable that a lot of people I've run into can remember in a long time. I would argue that it'll give us two things. One, it'll give us a healthy appreciation for the beauty of person-to-person communication and interaction when we are once more allowed to do that. And I think it gives us an appreciation for the good health that we largely enjoy. Because, as you say, Greg, there are millions of viruses. And all it takes is one. And we don't have a vaccine, and we're done for. So.
Yeah, and the reason why this is so concerning is because it's a novel virus. It's a virus that's never been seen in humans before now. So that makes it a little, concerning. And, when you talk about mental health and January being a long month, and now with a shutdown and a curfew in Quebec, it makes it even more difficult. And so people need to start doing things for their own mental health and well-being, because we don't want there to be secondary and tertiary consequences and victims to the virus because of mental health issues and struggles and whatever. You and I have been talking a lot about fitness and working out, and I mean, I used to work out 4 or 5 times a week, play hockey 2 or 3 times a week on top of all that. And then last year, as everything was shut down, it kind of just that stopped for everybody, right? And trying to find ways to like throughout the summer and trying to find ways to stay motivated, going out on my bike and different things like that. But it still was difficult. And today, I'm finally, after I start forcing myself at the end of December, January, going out for walks and different things, but for my own mental health and getting out of my own head and disconnecting from everybody, and putting in headphones and going for a walk and now also snowshoeing and then putting in some workouts with some weights. It's worked wonders for me and my level of stress and whatever, and people need outlets like that. And if working out and being active isn't your outlet, then you got to find something that's going to be your outlet. If it's talking to a friend, reach out and send a text or a phone call or FaceTime, and just be there for each other. Be good friends and be good neighbors, and understand that we're all dealing with something that hasn't been seen ever, and that we need to be able to support each other, and understanding that we're all at different places in this, and we're all dealing with it in different ways, and there's no wrong way to deal with it, but to do it in a healthy fashion, right?
That's right. And one of the outlets, we were talking about how, being physical is a big outlet for people our age, and especially the kids. And the league that oversees the Kahnawake Minor Hockey Association, along with 9 other regional associations, announced just last week that the minor hockey season was officially canceled. Now, in Kahnawake, they haven't been active since maybe December or even earlier than that, with the sports complex, the maintenance there on the ice making system. And then even last fall, when our local team started looking outside of the community, they were practicing in arenas in Chateauguay and Mercier, Saint Martin, different things like that. And it was going to become a problem anyway to secure that ice. But on a mental note for the kids, I'm just wondering how that makes them feel, knowing that maybe if hockey was their outlet or any minor sport was their outlet, where does that put them? And what you were talking about earlier, Greg, is the importance of just calling somebody, calling a friend and telling them it's different for children, maybe that avenue is to go through their parents first or whatever it might be. But more often than not, when you do reach out, you tend to find that people are feeling the same way that you are. And it's important to know that every day is going to be different. One day you might think you're handling this whole pandemic and quarantine like it's not a problem. Some days are easy, but then there's a lot of days that are really, really hard, and that's okay too, because we're gonna have it's going to be a mixed bag like that for a while.
Yeah, and some days, 1 minute you're great, and the next minute you're not. It's a constant change, and that's one of the things with this pandemic is that the information changes so quickly. We're I think acute to that a little bit more because we're covering it and living through it. So that makes the stress level a little bit higher because we're constantly talking to people who are dealing with this and doing their best to mitigate the situation for the community and for everybody. And we're looking at things in a global sense and how it's going around us, and then we're seeing the effects of it on ourselves, and not being able to connect with family, and not being able to connect with friends, and for the longest time not being working by ourselves and working at home, and and that creates a toll, right? And so, we have to find ways that we're going to be able to, I guess, deal with that stress and try to not just lock it up in inside of a box and throw it away kind of deal, because, that's going to come back and you're going to explode at some point.
Yeah, that never ends well.
Yeah. You got to try to find a way to relieve that pressure valve, right?
You have to let off steam.
Yeah.
My daughter is a high-level hockey player, and to your point, Jordan, her AAA season has also been canceled, and the Dodge Cup has been canceled, and that's the end of it. So she does sport-études at school, so hockey is part of her curriculum. Thank God, because those 3 hours on the ice a week help her mood so much, helps her self-esteem, helps deliver endorphins to the brain system to give you some pleasure, some happiness, and it's allowed her a little bit of sociability. Now, for a 16-year-old, it's really hard because you can't hang out with your friends, and your friends when you're 16 are everything. So we're celebrating her 16th birthday this Saturday. We can't have friends over, we can't have a party, so we're managing in the best way we know how. But that's a roundabout way of introducing the point that I'm lucky in that I own a fair bit of exercise equipment, and I have a little home gym and in my extension at home. Well, this pandemic has resulted in my two kids working out with each other in each other's company every night from 8 till about 9. And so maybe there's a little silver lining to all this.
Yeah, I mean, as people, right? I think we've find ways to be able to manage these things, right? And to move forward, and whether that's people finding the gym or whatever, or finding a creative outlet, and just ways to be creative and do things. And you just look at Jessica Hernandez from Nishia's Accessories. With a pending shutdown, month-long shutdown back in December, she announced that and put out a design for a community beadwork challenge that gained so much steam, and there's so many talented beadworkers that are taking that design and making it their own. And so it's also different things like that. People taking up new hobbies, picking up a guitar and learning music and things like that. There's so many different outlets that people can do and while in isolation. At the end of the day, when this is over, be able to come back together and hang out with your family, your friends, your coworkers, and do some of the things that are normal. Like going to a restaurant with family and friends, or going to the mall, or going to a movie.
Just say dinner and a movie, baby. That's my favorite.
Yeah, or going to a concert, and those are the things that we got to look forward to, right? And because those things are going to come back at some point, but it seems like it's far off, but with the vaccines that have been approved and are being rolled out, and the ones that are in development and almost rolling out, I think that the light is really at the end of the tunnel, right? And we're almost there.
Yeah, I feel like as a society, as Westerners, as people who live in this world, it feels to me right now as though we're in the end game. We're so close. We're so close, man. We just got to hang in a little while longer. So we're so close.
But I think it's good to be this optimistic at this point, especially considering how everybody was just so hell-bent on getting out of 2020.
Yep.
It's just like around New Year's, everybody was just ready to put that year behind us and everything. And then the irony is that January felt like the 13th month of 2020.
Just more of the same.
But as Greg was mentioning, I get caught up in thinking that way a lot too. As it's every day is the same every day. But there is a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, with the developments that we're seeing on a daily basis, and just being able to get a little bit closer, maybe not figuratively yet, you know what I mean? But I feel like we're getting there. And I think we have a lot of reasons to be optimistic. And our community has done a great job, as we already talked about, taking care of our elders. We're very conscious of our youth, but that's part of who we are as Kahnawake people. We're always thinking about the generations. So it's just great to see that. And I think that if we really just keep on this track, we're moving. We are moving now.
Yeah, and I think we're at a point where, yes, it's 10 months going on 11 months, and it's long, but we're almost there.
Almost there.
Yeah, it's so close, and we got to look towards that. Maybe this summer we have a more normal summer. Maybe it's not going to be 100% normal. Maybe we're not going to see the types of sports that we're used to seeing.
Quebec gave the green light to day camps the other day for the summer, which is a huge deal because last summer they didn't. And so that's a real big deal. So there may be something to that.
Yeah, and I mean, so there's a lot of things that are coming, right? Mm. And the lights at the end of the tunnel. So with that, thanks for people who've listened. This far.
I was gonna say, if you've listened this long, you're either a family member or a real big fan of ours.
But I just want to thank everybody and for listening. And if you have any ideas on what you'd like to hear as in a podcast through your Diawase, let us know in the comments below.
Thanks, guys. It's been a real pleasure.
Kahnawake, everybody.
Yeah, Kahnawake.